Welcome to Astro Chat with Anne Sundell, Kimberly Williams, and Monika Anna. We are three professional astrologers living in three separate countries, coming together every new and full moon to share our 3 points of view on astrology. Whether you enjoy deep dives into the current transits or you are just beginning to learn about astrology for the first time, there is a place for you here. All that is required is an appreciation for astrology, along with respect for the various traditions within it. So grab a mug of coffee, your favorite cup of tea, or any other beverage of your choice, and join us for a chat on the astrology of the next 2 weeks.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Astro Chat podcast with your host for half of this episode, Monika Anna. Hello. I'm saying half of this episode because Kimberly and myself couldn't align our schedules, our timelines. So unfortunately, we weren't able to record it together. However, we still wanted to put episodes together. So you will have a pleasure of listening, hopefully, to New Moon in Leo in 2 parts. So this episode, as I said, will be about New Moon in Leo that happens at 12 degrees of Leo. It will happen on the 4th of August at 6:13 a.m. of Central Time Zone in the US and 12:13 p.m. UK time, and then 2:13 p.m. of Finland time. And obviously you have to adjust the time for your own location. Again, new moon, new beginnings, new start. Always, for me, it's always exciting. It just feels fresh. It feels new. It feels like I can start anew. It kind of feels a little bit like Mondays, like when you can start things again. And the beauty for me of always working with lunation, and I'm sure I said that on many episodes that we've recorded, is that every month this new moon, it happens in a different sign. It resonates with different archetypes. So as we go through the year, as we go through seasons, we can pick up and learn about different archetype. We can resonate with a different energy, and we can set our intentions and our goals and dreams, dream our dreams surrounded by the energies of different archetype. And again, every archetype will be linked to our individual houses, and every archetype will then speak to a specific area of life in our lives through that house placement. So it's always exciting. New moon, new beginnings. New moon, it's a reset moment within the lunation cycle. We're coming from the previous cycle that started the previous new moon, culminated at the full moon, and then the energies were slowly draining, slowly going into the darkness until through the balsamic phase, we let go of everything. And now it's time to dream again, to start fresh, to start talking about new energies and new plans and new beginnings. So I am excited. It's new moon in Leo. It's a fire sign. It's the sign about our heart and our creativity and that childlike joy that hopefully we still have within and we haven't forgotten. It's so easy in our Western society to let go of that childlike quality in us. We are told that we need to be adult, we need to be responsible, we need to be accountable for our actions, for our work, for other people. And that's all very true. But very often when we're taught that, it's implied that we need to let go of the childish behavior. And for me, there's always a subtle difference between childish and childlike. Childish behavior is that lack of maturity, is lack of working with Saturn. It's lack of experiencing your progressed moon return and growing within yourself, understanding your emotions and understanding your triggers, understanding your trauma, working through that. Childish is staying in place where we don't want to take accountability. We don't want to speak to Saturn. But then on the other hand, going full on with Saturn and being too responsible and too authoritarian can actually lead to rigidity and fossilizing in our lives, in our mindset, in our approach to things. So for me, that infusion of Leo energy into our life is incredibly important. Is the place in our life that we feel joy, we have a way and a space to be creative. And again, I want to be just super clear. Creativity doesn't mean you're next Picasso or next Mozart, or you are incredible singer, painter, composer, games developer, or a writer. Creativity can be anything. You can be incredibly creative by beautifying the space around you. You might have Leo in a fourth house, and the fourth house will be your pride and joy. And the fourth house will be the place where you're expressing your creativity, where your house is not, the picture perfect from the magazine. It expresses your own unique personality. It expresses who you are. Leo can be in the house of career, and then that means that you are really leading from the heart. You are bringing your generosity and your courage into what you're doing out there in the world. So we can express Leos in different places in our life depending on that Leonian placement in our chart. But nevertheless, wherever Leo is, that's where we can find joy, that we can connect with our heart, we can connect with our inner child, especially if there are times when we sometimes forgotten about our inner child, when we became a little bit too adult, when we adulted too much, and we got so friendly with Saturn that we actually forgot the beauty and the joy and that sheer light that children have, and we have that within us, that sheer joy that you see in a child's eyes when they experiencing something for the first time, this kind of wow. And it's anything. It doesn't have to be a Disneyland park. It can be like, oh my God, I just saw this vegetable for the first time and it tasted amazing. And wow. And you're thinking, that's broccoli. What's wrong with you? So it's this moment where children experiencing something, they experiencing it with their whole self. It's not intellectual, oh, that's lovely. It's the joy, it just it runs through them. You can see that in their eyes, you can see that in their body language, you can see that in their expressions. And that is the joy that when we're really experiencing that, it shines through us. One thing that I always say to my friends is that I love passionate people. I love watching people, not in a creepy way. I need to put it out. In that I am absolutely fascinated by people. My background is in teaching and is in journalism. And obviously, as an astrologer, my biggest fascinations are people and their stories. And when you really truly meet passionate people, and it doesn't matter what they're passionate about, they might be passionate about collecting stamps, they might be passionate about bugs found in South America, they might be passionate about their culinary experiences. Whatever it is, when they talk about it, you can't help but listen. They're absolutely light up from within. They're talking about the passion. There is that fire in them. That's very much Leo, that fire in us. That is the fire of creativity, of our passion, and of that deep joy. And again, when I think about Leo, and that archetype is that deep joy that is within us. It's not the surface level. Oh my God, I had an amazing Friday afternoon. I went out for coffee with my friend and I really enjoyed it and I was happy. That joy that we're experiencing in Leo, it's all encompassing if we allow it to be. So we have a new moon in Leo that's happening on the 4th of August. This is the moment when you can open the doors of that creativity. If you've forgotten, or if you didn't have time, or if life just got too Saturnian, too busy, too maybe Plutonian and transformational, maybe you can this month, this lunation, carve a little bit time for yourself to get in touch with your inner child. If you don't know what to do, think about what brought you joy when you were little. What really brought you joy when you were little? What was your escapism? Was it a book? Was it a painting? Was it playing football? And if you remember those little things, go and get them. Maybe join five-a-side and play football after work. Maybe just play football in a back garden with your children or in a local park. But try to reconnect with that. What's interesting about this lunation is all the other aspects that's happening at the same time. So I'll be talking a little bit about three aspects that I think are important for this lunation. One is Venus and Neptune are speaking to one another. Neptune is at end of Pisces, is at 29 degrees of Pisces. So we'll be moving again, we'll be moving forward to Aries very soon. And Venus is at 29 degrees of Leo, again, moving to Virgo very soon. And those planets are speaking with each other, not quite in a harmony. There is some kind of not quite seeing each other, not quite comfortable with each other. So you have Venus, who is at 29 degrees Leo. It's that Venus, that desire, are also full of passion and full of fire. We're in Leo territory. So what we desire, what we go after, what we love, what we're passionate about with Venus, it's all about around Leo archetypes, Leo themes. So that fire of being center of attention, of being surrounded by love and being cared about, and also showing love, being that generosity, showing love, showing up with Venus in Leo, showing up as your best self, showing up in your best frock with your best hairdo and so on. And Venus is trying to learn that experience. At the same time, it's that kind of uncomfortable pull from Neptune sitting at the last degrees of Pisces, trying to still teach us and draw us into the reflection of what is our dream, what is our vision, and what is the illusion that we've built? What is that mirage that we've been seeing that will dissolve very soon? So Neptune is still trying to speak to us and draw us into those Pisceans water of, do we see that dream or do we see a mirage? And I think at the moment it's actually very difficult to differentiate between two of those, because quite frankly, a lot of dreams that people put in place, that people achieved, when they said those dreams to their friends, to their colleagues, to their family at the beginning of their journey, they probably were told that they're crazy, that that's never going to happen. Things like that do not happen to people like you. How often have we heard that from others? You can't make it, you're not good enough, you're a dreamer. We've all heard that before to a certain extent, whether you're an Olympic champion that came from a background that doesn't have anything to do with sports, or whether you're first generation university graduate where your whole family couldn't understand why you need to go there, why you need to prove to yourself that maybe you can do it. So Neptune is still trying to teach us that, and it's still that uncomfortable position where, do we believe in that dream and we go full on for it? Or do we think it's a mirage and it will dissolve? And I'm not sure if we can actually, at this moment in time, tell the difference. So I think knowing Saturn is still in Pisces, having a background, creating foundations for these dreams and working hard to achieve them is one thing. But also with Neptune at the end of that sign, we need to be maybe treating ourselves gently and maybe approaching this with a bit more of that gentle Piscean flow. It would be amazing if it happens, and I'm going to put all myself into it. But if it's going to turn into a dissolution, if that dream will dissolve, there's always something that stays behind it, even if it is just the learning, even if it is the journey that I've had. So those planets speaking to each other with a bit of discomfort, and then Venus will move to Virgo, which during this lunation, straight after this lunation, so between this new moon and the next full moon. And the ruler of that Venus in Virgo is Mercury, that at this moment in time is stationing to go retrograde. So yes, everyone, we have another Mercury retrograde. Yay. I think we're all excited. As we know, we can always blame on Mercury. Actually, let's not. Mercury can be incredible ally. And those moments of retrograde, when they actually aligned with our own energies, they can be incredible. And they can be those moments and pockets of insight that we need. Mercury is a planet that goes through things super quick. It's the fastest planet, obviously outside of the moon. It's the fastest planet in astrology. When we're looking at those planets, it's the one that whizzes through the zodiac really quickly, and it constantly goes back and forth. It's because of that speed that we sometimes have in life. We need to go backwards. How many times we left somewhere in a rush, the restaurant, we forgot our jacket, house, we forgot our car keys, work, we forgot our laptop. It's that rush that we have in our lives. And even the planets in the universe sometimes tell us, you know what, stop, let's go back. Let's go back. Let's go through those steps that you've taken and reflect on them. And Mercury will be going over in retrograde motion from Virgo into Leo and then back into Virgo. So we're going from that place where Mercury is a ruler. It's a ruler of Virgo, and obviously Venus will be there. Place of being organized and being aware of things that are impure, not in a sense of pure and impure in sense of is there addition to, so purity in a way that we think, for example, about a chemical component or mineral, when it's just a whole. If you're a whole, if you are yourself, authentically yourself, you are pure, you are united with who you are at every level, whether it's emotional, intellectual, with your body, with your senses. When you're at one with, that's the purity that we're talking, that's the wholeness that we're talking. When we're feeling pulled and pushed by other people, when we have the voice of our parents or the voice of our caregivers or the voice of our religion or our culture speaking into us, and we feel like they're actually meddling with what we want, what we feel, what we want to think. This is when we're saying that actually something is not pure, something is polluting my mind, polluting my thoughts, polluting my emotions. So Mercury will be trying to teach us about that. Go back to Leo, which I think is actually really lovely, that it's going back to Leo, it's going back to what is at our core, in our heart, in that joyful little inner child that we have within. And can we bring that childlike purity into Virgo? Because then it's easier to see that. Virgo is not necessarily about cleaning and organizing. This speaks true to Virgo. This is the area of the zodiac, the archetype of the zodiac that want to have a bit of a control. But this is more of, I've been through the journey from a Aries through Taurus to Gemini to Cancer and to Leo, and now in Virgo, I am distilling everything that I've learned before I go into another journey from Libra to Pisces. So I've learned, this is my inner world, that in Virgo now, I need to make sure that I can pull the chaff from the wheat, and again keep that wheat pure and move the chaff away. This is the moment where you're moving house, you're checking what is it that I want to bring into my new house, into my new home, into my new life, and what is it that is better left behind. Are there books that I can leave behind? Are there any clothes that I can leave behind? Is there a whole drawer of utensils in the kitchen that I don't need and I can leave behind? This is the same thing when we're changing jobs or changing relationships. Virgo can help us clear and clean and purify what we don't no longer need. It's not just about body purification, it's also about our mind and our emotions. If we just exited a relationship, again, Leo is about a romance and maybe like a cheeky affairs and flings, and then we had one of those, and then we jump into another one. We don't have time to even distill what happened in that relationship, what went well, what brought us joy, what was beautiful and great and made us feel amazing, made us feel like we're the only one, Leo, like we are on the stage being admired, and what actually brought us down. And if we don't have that Virgo element within us, this is sometimes when we're forgetting about actually it's important to have a moment, and at every stage of life, every stage of relationship, of your work, you name it, you need to have that stage when you go, okay, what I no longer need within me, around me, in my future life. That's Virgo. And I think this Mercury going back and forth and connecting those two signs during this retrograde will be speaking to both of those archetypes. We'll go back to Leo, bring up that joy and that inner child, and then go back to Virgo and say, okay, if we want to keep that creativity, if we want to keep that joy, what is that I need to let go of? What are the things that pollute my level of joy, that pollute my level of creativity, that basically creating that uncomfortable, disconnected world around me, that it's difficult to dip into that Leonian archetype. So I think that's something that we'll be seeing and we can work with over the next few days as we're going through that. And one more big thing that I wanted to mention here is Jupiter and Saturn will be meeting in square. They will square each other. They'll be meeting in that tense aspect of 90 degrees where it's just not comfortable. It can be creative because when we don't feel comfort, we usually need to adjust something. So whether you don't feel comfortable sitting somewhere, whether you don't feel comfortable in your relationship or at work, it's that tension that actually make things going, that is that tension that actually make things creative, because you know what, I need to do something about it. If everything is fine, you're not necessarily inclined to change. As a humans, I don't think we're going, oh my God, it's so nice, it's so comfortable, and I just so feel so relaxed. Let me change my whole life 180 degrees, right? We just want to enjoy that moment. But when we have that discomfort, that there's this tension, that like a relationship is not working, work is not working, we even in our body, we feel tense, we feel uncomfortable. And that is that energy that sometimes propel us forward. So Jupiter and Saturn will meet. Saturn will be in a Pisces, as I mentioned before, and Jupiter will be in a sign of Gemini, and they'll meet in that discomfort. And this is a first square, so that crisis in action of the cycle from when they met in 2020, in December of 2020. In December 2020, we had Jupiter and Saturn meeting in a sign of Aquarius. They met up at 0 degrees of Aquarius, and that was a big thing because Jupiter and Saturn meet together roughly every 20 years. So we have that societal, generational meetup point. They say hello and then they go off their own way. And then again, they come back in 20 years and they say hello. But the bigger cycle to that is that those meeting points every 20 years usually happen in in one element for roughly 150 to 200 years. So we've had nearly 200 years of them meeting in Earth. It started around Industrial Revolution, surprise. So for the last decades, every time they met in element of Earth, which again brought that cultural, societal focus on Earth, on themes and archetypes that connect to that element. And the big one in this one is they met up in Aquarius. And now we start the whole new cycle of them meeting in Earth sign. There was a little bit overlap when they met up in Libra a few years back, and then they went back to Earth. And then this 2020 was the first time when they actually started a cycle meeting in Earth sign. So again, we're moving society from earth-based themes and archetypes, to which probably it's a whole new episode, and I'm sure we've talked about it when we've recorded the podcast, and we will be talking about it even more. But what I would suggest as well is that you can look at your own chart, you can look at your own life, at your journals and your calendars, at your pictures, and have a look what happened around December 2020, what themes came to light, what was important in your life at that time, because that was the seed that was planted. And now they're coming together in that tense element. So now is the time to move forward, to take action. So the themes that were coming up around that time, I would expect them to resurrect, so to speak, again, come to life again, and ask you a question. Okay, you had some time to prepare for that square, for that first quarter between them. So what is it that you're doing at the moment? What actions do we need to take? If you look at the themes around November, December, January, obviously it was a specific date when they met, but it's a huge, huge cycle and a big conjunction. So I would give it a bigger orb and I would look at the themes around those 3 months and reflect on that and see what will happen in August. They will meet in that tense aspect 3 times. So they're not letting go. This entry into air sign, I feel like it's quite significant. They're not letting go of that. They will meet in August. They will meet, I believe, again in December. I would have to triple check my dates. And then they'll meet again in 2025 because both planets will be in retrograde motion. So they'll be coming and going, but meeting in that tense aspect 3 times until they obviously move forward in 2025. So this is the first of 3. August 19, this will be the first of 3 exact hits. And I think the first kind of kickoff to what is it that we need, which direction we're taking, what actions we need to take to then achieve something that we planted at that 2020. And one more thing to add, interestingly, that 2020 conjunction that happened in December with Jupiter and Saturn happened at 0 Aquarius. At this moment, on this new moon, we have Pluto at 0 Aquarius. So there is this, for me, it resonates and it connects in that synchronic, that's a difficult word for me, in that meaningful way, what happened in 2020 with transformative power of Pluto. There is something about going into the depth with Pluto. There's something about transforming that 0 degrees of Aquarius in our chart. And this new moon is speaking to that. So it's really interesting that during this cycle, they'll meet. I think there is this, again, it resonates. Leo and Aquarius are the signs on opposite ends of each other. So it would be interesting to see what can we observe and reflect this month, and where can we take our dreams, our visions, and what actions we need to take during this cycle to fulfill the dream and the seed, and grow the seed and grow the dream that we planted in December 2020. So the little tip for me, maybe 2 tips. One, have a look and immerse yourself in joy. Like, just allow yourself. Can it be a day this month? Can it be an hour if you're super busy? If you are surrounded by people and you can't carve time for yourself, can you experience joy with them? Whether it's your partner, do something amazing. Maybe you absolutely love dinner and a movie. Maybe that's your thing and you haven't done it for months. Go and do that. If there's something with kids, maybe stop what you're doing and actually go and play with your kids. Be silly, paint your face with them, be within that joy and that energy this month, because I think it's really important. I think that's not so much astrology as much as just the gut feeling. It's really important to connect with our heart and who we are at our core and our authentic self, and bring that depth of courage and beauty and leadership into the world, especially with those heavier transits happening and asking us. This is the Jupiter and Leo square will be called to action, will be called to action for everything that happened and planted in 2020. And to go and answer that call, I think we need to get in touch with our Leo. So I think that's about it from me. I hope you enjoy 2 looks, 2 sides of the new moon, the light and the dark. I was trying to be a little bit lighter with the light side of the moon, I think, this episode. I hope you enjoy. And as always, as Kimberly says, if you can share our channel, like it, or subscribe, it really helps it grow. And also it tells us that our chats that we're putting out there are actually received, and yeah, and we can have that feedback, because it's really daunting when you're actually looking in the camera and talking to yourself, which is a really unusual thing to do, I have to say. But we really enjoy talking about astrology, talking about archetypes, and bringing it to you. Until next time, thank you so much for listening.
It was great getting to hear everything you had to say there, Monica. I enjoyed listening to your half of the podcast. And I'm just going to add a few extra items. I think you covered it really well, so there's not much I have left to say. I wanted to talk a little about the fact that we've got Venus going into Virgo. Uh, Venus in Virgo, that's the sign we often say is her sign of detriment. And detriments are where planets have a difficulty operating at their highest vibration, if you will. But I actually think there's a superpower we have with detriment. It's this ability of the planet to behave in a way that is contrary to the norms. the norms of our family, the norms of society. So when Venus is in Virgo, if the norms are that in relationship, we're supposed to listen before we talk, if the norms are that we should do things together and in partnership, if the norms are that cooperation and teamwork is more important than doing things in a solitary manner, what we're going to find is that Venus in Virgo thrives doing things more solitary, will thrive doing things perhaps less about the partnership and more about the mission. In fact, I think one of the strengths of Venus and Virgo is we come together and connect with other individuals using that Venus side of that planetary energy for a purpose, for a mission, to be of service. How can I serve you? Or how can you and I come together? How can we serve others? And so this can be a great time to really make connections with like minded individuals who want to get the ball rolling, who want to roll up their sleeves, who want to do some hard work with you about the things that matter. There's a lot more I could say about Venus and Virgo. Pretty partial to that combination, but I'll just put that out there for you to chomp on for now. Oh, the other thing before I move on, a lot of times we talk about Venus and Venus being the Roman equivalent of the Greek Aphrodite. And so a lot of times we'll be like, get your inner Aphrodite on. And how about when Venus is in Virgo? How about we embrace our inner Ishtar? I did a course one time on Venus, and they talked a lot about in Mesopotamian culture, Venus was the only planet that was female. We didn't have, they had a masculine moon. So it was the only like female deity up in the heavens. And her job, Ishtar's job, was to give out the weapons to all the other gods. They had to come to her, propitiate her, prove their worth to her, and then receive the weapons or the tools that they basically a weapon would be the tool you need to be able to take action in the material world. So there's something that's really different from our modern perception of this planet. So I feel like when Venus is in Virgo, it's much more about how am I going to get the work done? What are the tools I need? I'm more focused on the accomplishing the tasks than I am on the how that feels to others. It doesn't mean we don't consider feelings, but I think it's a when the work is done, then we can sit and connect and chew the fat. But in the meantime, let's talk about the things that matter. I'm curious to see how this Venus and Virgo period goes for all of y'all, how this transit works out. Of course, another planet that she's going to be really close to is that Mercury that Monica already mentioned. We've got Mercury going retrograde. And it's really interesting to me how everything is happening so close to the lunations. And we saw this, I think, start last month. But here we have a new moon on the 5th, and I'm sorry, new moon on the 4th. And the day after on the 5th, we're going to have Mercury go retrograde. We're going to see similar things happen with the next full moon on the 19th, that the day before the day of, things are also happening, that transits are perfecting. So I think it amps up the energy of the lunation overall. So Mercury retrograde, it goes retrograde on the 5th at 4 degrees of Virgo. And during the 3 weeks it's retrograde, it will back up to 21 degrees of Leo, right? That visual optical illusion that it looks like it's going backwards, even though we know it's not. But some things happen along that journey. It's not just a retrograde, right? A couple days after, on the 7th, it's going to make contact with Venus. They will be conjunct, they will be side by side. On the 17th, we're going to see that Mercury in Leo will square Uranus that's currently been transited and hanging out at the tail end of Taurus. And then on the 18th, just before our next full moon, it will make a conjunction with the sun. So let's break that out for a second, right? Let's just think about what that might mean. So if Mercury is retrograde, it is a time to redo, revisit. It's a time to go back, right? Take the prefix RE and put it in front of words. In fact, it's really a fun exercise to think of how many words can we come up with and they actually make sense when you like have the do-over, when you redo them. So that's the energy of Mercury retrograde. We go back, we revisit, we rethink, we're analyzing, we're discerning, we're breaking things down. We're looking for what maybe didn't work before, what we missed. It's also a fabulous time to go back and complete any unfinished business or to go back and do something you didn't like the way it came out the first time. So there's a lot we can do with Mercury retrograde. It is not doom and gloom like social media would have us believe. It is not a time necessarily to launch something new and to be pushing forward. That's when we can sometimes struggle. But if we're working with the energy the way it's meant to, this could be fabulous. And since Mercury is the ruler of Virgo, this could be a rather pronounced Mercury retrograde. We're starting off in Virgo. We're starting off with rethinking, reanalyzing, reorganizing could be really big here. And then it moves back into Leo. And I feel like when we get into Leo, it's really about reignite your fire, reignite your passion, reignite the what is it that's holding us back or has us maybe in a bit of the blah kind of mode. How do we get that fire going? The fire of Leo. How do we get it going again? And often with Leo, the way to get that fire lit up and going in a healthy way is either embrace play, the joy of whatever makes you feel playful, or embracing, as Monica mentioned, our childlike self, our inner child, the parts of us that want to be creative, that want to have fun, that have that sense of awe and wonder at this beautiful life. When I think about the energy of Leo, to me it feels, as the French would say, joie de vivre, the joy of living. How do I reignite that fire? Some cues of what might be helpful are those contacts that are happening throughout Mercury retrograde's journey. Specifically, we've got Mercury conjunct Venus. When that happens, this is going to be a lot to do with what do you desire and what do you need to remember that you desire, right? It's one thing to say, I want something, but desire is a much deeper energy and emotion. And I feel like Venus is your inner attraction energy. We are the flower opening up and we are attracting to us the things that we desire. But if we have forgotten what I desire, and in this case, with all this Leo energy swirling around us, if I've forgotten what brings me joy, if I've forgotten how to play, if I've forgotten to make time, if my time management, which is another form of organization, if that is going towards work or family or the house, and none of it is going towards the things that make my heart sing, then how are we going to activate that Venusian energy? We can't, right? We have to remember. So on the 7th of August could be a really good day for those taking some time moments to get back in touch with what do I desire? What is it that brings me joy? It doesn't have to be over the top or huge. Sometimes the simple pleasures carry a lot, but this could be helpful in getting us back on track. Later, we're going to see on the 17th of the month that it has moved far enough back in Leo, that Mercury has gone far enough back that it will be creating some conflict. It'll be making a square with Uranus. And Uranus, we've talked about a lot on the podcast. It's been hanging out in Taurus for some time now, for many years. And it's still there. It's at that tail end. And Uranus is in Taurus is that striking paradox of a planet that is all about change in a sign that is about staying fixed, carrying on and carrying through. That can be difficult sometimes to manage or to balance. Is it that I'm wanting change, but life is keeping me stuck? Is it that life is throwing me a lot of change and maybe that change is in the form of chaos? Maybe that change is in the form of things breaking or breaking down, and I just want to be able to stay the course? Or is it a combination of both? We've all been dealing with this in whatever area of life resonates with where in your chart your Taurus lives, right? If you look at your chart and see what house is your Taurus energy, that's going to tell us where we're experiencing this push pull about what needs to shift, what needs to change. And now we're going to have very quickly a momentary tension to that. And with Mercury, and sometimes people don't pay so much attention to the inner planets transiting the outer planets. But I think this can be really useful because If we are stuck, if we're in that place of the Taurus energy has us stuck and we either don't see the change, don't appreciate it, or we're just not able to make the shift stick. Sometimes we make a change and a week later we're back into the old habit or the old way. This could be that push, that nudge that we need. Those fast moving planets, when it's the moon, when it's Mercury or Venus hitting this planet that has been hanging out for a long time, sometimes that's a kickstart that gets us back into the ball rolling here. So, again, give some time to your mind to reflect, to revisit, to just think about where are you feeling pushed to make a shift and where do you resist, right? The key for me with Uranus is we usually notice what we are resisting as a cue rather than the, oh, I see that this needs to change. I don't want that to change. If it's not Baroque, don't fix it. Or maybe I don't have the tools I think I need to make the change happen. Or whatever story we tell ourselves to delay the inevitable. This could be a time to really think about, why am I resisting? Ask yourself that very mercurial question: why? Why am I resisting? Why am I stuck? Why is this happening over and over? What is it that I need to be learning or seeing that I'm not getting? So, this could again be a day when we get some cues, and those cues could also come not only from our own inner reflection, but those cues could come from conversations we're having with others. And then lastly, I want to mention that just before the full moon on the 18th, we're going to have the conjunction, that side by side of Mercury and the Sun. It's literally in the eye of the storm, in the center of the heart of the sun, if you will. This is very important when we look at the cycles and when the synodic cycle of any planet to the sun, the time that it makes a conjunction until the time it comes back around again, that can be a really interesting time pattern. Things can happen that are connected to each other during that time. Basically, it's like a restart. And since Mercury is retrograde, let's call it that. This is a time to restart, to reboot your hard drive about how do you want to shine? Where do you want your light, your energy, your telos, your sun energy? Where do you want to put that out into the world? Where do you want maybe your mind and your attention and your conscious energy to be going? Are you holding focus or are you all over the place? This could be that beautiful time to restart, to reboot ourselves on that new path that we will begin once Mercury goes direct. Here it's about getting the awareness for it and then finishing up, releasing what holds us back, finishing up the things that might get in the way, or just finding those old projects or those old plans and getting ourselves organized so we are ready for the relaunch, right? Once that planet of Mercury goes direct. So there's some things that might be helpful throughout this particular retrograde. The other thing that really stood out for me, and again, Monica also touched on this too, is we have this contact between Jupiter in Gemini and Saturn in Pisces. And yes, the last time we had an intense contact between them was back in 2020 when we had the conjunction in our beginning our new cycle of them being in air signs instead of in earth signs. So our society is shifting. Things are going from the prove it, show me, the proof is in the pudding. Things are shifting away from maybe material structure and we're shifting into ideals matter more. Communication matters more. It isn't show me, it's tell me. Explain it to me. And on a personal level, I think a lot of us may be feeling that push and that expansion of Jupiter. Our minds are alight right now with ideas, with things we want to be able to share, convey, with conversations we want to be having, whether or not we're able to get them materialized. But this idea of the mind is just full of thoughts and ideas and tidbits and wisdom and wit and the need to communicate that externally with other like-minded individuals. But here's the kicker. is that the day before we get that exact tension. And I really feel like we're already feeling it. The exact square isn't until later in the month on, I believe it's the 19th, but we're already feeling it. They're close enough, they're within orb, they're close enough to those degrees that we're feeling that push, that pull between the expansion of Jupiter and the limitations of Saturn. What stands out for me is that the day before, Jupiter will be touching Mars. They're conjunct, they're together. Is the spark. Mars is your energy. Mars is the I need to do it now, not later, not in another week or two, not once Mercury goes direct. I need to take action. I need to put my energy out in the world and I need to do it now, preferably spontaneously. But if we have to plan it, okay. But let's get this party started, would be probably Mars's theme song. And so here you have this planet of action and of instantaneous action and movement, because the whole thing about action is it gets things moving. We're not stagnant, we're not stalled, and it's with Jupiter, so it's expanding this. It's imperative that it happens now. The stakes have never been higher for me that I take action now. I'm hearing the call, and this is what I need to do now. And it's around what we need to say, what we need to hear. So this could be I need to open up my ears and listen more to other people now. This could be I need to really work on that throat chakra and speak my truth and say it out loud now. But as we are feeling the push both to do things in the moment from Mars and the push of it feels really large and imperative from Jupiter, that could also mean a lot of things are bursting forward. That could indicate to me that we may struggle with tact and diplomacy, or maybe we master that, but we struggle with what I'm putting out, no matter how gracefully I say it, is it being received? And I think that might be some of the tension we're experiencing from Saturn. As Saturn enters this dynamic, Saturn tends to be limitations and obstacles, the challenges. Saturn is those things slowing us down. The things in life, whether that is other people, whether that is our inner critic and our inner thinking, whether it's simply a matter of practicalities. Maybe I want to take a trip to Europe now and travel because for you, all this is happening in your ninth house, let's say, but money is not available. So, therefore, the answer from the universe right now is no. There's something going on or someone in our lives, I think, with the Saturn that's slowing us down, that's saying no, or maybe saying not yet, or maybe there's something I need to learn or something I need to master before we can do it. In any way that you slice or dice it, it comes down in in the ears of Mars, it comes down to I'm being told no, I'm being held back, I'm being stopped. And so I want to encourage everyone, and I'm saying this out loud to encourage myself too, to remember that not now is not the same as not ever, right? That it is not easy when you have, if Mars is conjunct Jupiter, that means it is also squaring Saturn along with that Jupiter. So it's not pleasant when we have the two malefics, Mars and Saturn, in some kind of tense configuration. It can feel like things are insurmountable. It can feel like what is, excuse me, what is holding me back is society, is something that just, I'm thinking of all the Saturnian kind of words. It could be society, social institutions, father figures, right? That's some of the things we often think about with Saturn. It could be our inner critic, as I already mentioned. It's this idea of what are the obstacles slowing you down? They need to be overcome to go forward, not because they're there for no other purpose but to irritate us. They need to be overcome because the process of overcoming an obstacle, the process of developing our skill, of strengthening those muscles, of thinking out of the box, of whatever it is I have to do to overcome an obstacle rather than just go around it. Overcoming it And here we're overcoming it by embracing our Gemini. So I'm using my mind, I'm using my thinking, my strategy, I'm using maybe some objectivity, maybe I'm using some charm. This might be a case of I really need to embrace my charisma, my charm, my wit. Instead of just thinking about the task and getting it done, we might have to stop. We might have to take a moment to, in spite of Venus being in Virgo, engage with other people, right? What do I need to learn to do to overcome this obstacle? Because in the end, once I have mastered that skill, it doesn't go away. And that is going to allow our Mars and our Jupiter to go further. Just getting in the car and driving to the store today, that's now. But would it not be more exciting to fill up the gas tank, to pack up the car, and to take a road trip for the weekend? So there's something important. And if we recognize that the obstacle is not an obstacle, but a learning opportunity, and if we're able to reframe our thinking, which I think could happen with all this Gemini energy, that if we reframe our thinking, then perhaps we'll find it easier to find our way through. That said, that's the personal level. It is very clear to me that if the last time these two planets that represent society, I can't say the last time they came together, the last time there was conflict, because conflict usually comes up from your squares, your oppositions, and then sometimes from your conjunctions. Those are the three kind of patterns that can create what we would consider conflict. And so the last time was 2020. And we know what happened in the world, what happened within our societies then. That wasn't just because of these two planets, right? Pluto had a bit to play in that, and asteroid Wuhan had a bit to play in that, and there were other factors. But overall, they're coming together again. And it is a form of crisis, a crisis of consciousness, a crisis around how do I take action? And the reason we often call this a crisis is because it feels that way. Internally, we are forcing ourselves to move in a different way. We're forcing ourselves to interact in the outer world, the world of society, in a way that feels different. And so internally, it can feel like a crisis of consciousness. So I hope that is a different way of looking at it as we move forward. I have no doubt that when Anna, Monica, and I are back together again talking about the upcoming full moon that'll be happening on the 19th, we will be readdressing this issue in much more detail. And a tip for these 2 weeks, new moons to me are times of embodiment. So I would invite you to find a way to embody play. I mean, in your body. Consider get a new haircut, get some new clothes, put on some jewelry, do some body art, get some temporary body jewelry, one of those fake nose piercings, or do some henna or temporary tattoos. If that feels a little extreme, think about how you can use your body in ways that bring you joy, whether this is dancing or anything else that brings you that sense of being in touch with childlike wonder. Maybe go do some finger paint. Remember what it was like to be a child and play with Play-Doh, finger paint? Everything was a kinesthetic, tactile experience. Give yourself that. Play with your food. Do something that brings your inner kid out, but through your senses, through the body. And just remember that making time for joy is key to being able to enjoy our life. All right. Look forward to seeing you all back in 2 weeks' time. Bye. Thank you for joining us in this week's Astro Chat. We hope that you enjoyed the discussion and would love to hear about anything that resonated with you. Keep the conversation going by posting shareable content on our Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube pages. You can also email us at astrochatpodcast@gmail.com. Astro Chat is uploaded every 2 weeks on the Saturday before each new and full moon. Look for us on your favorite podcast platform as well as on YouTube. You can support Astro Chat and receive exclusive content by donating on our Patreon page. We look forward to chatting with you all again at the next lunation of the moon.